you hear me now? Test, test, 1, 2. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Drummer. I am one of 2 representatives from the state of Maryland on the Metro Board of Directors. And before I get started, what I'd like to do is recognize a few people. And beginning with Mr. Mike Goldman, who is an alternate director representing Montgomery County. Glad to see you, Mike. And he's also the current chair of the Washington Suburban Transit Commission. I'm also joined here on my left by our Chief Financial Officer, Yetende Olumide. And on my right, Ms. Jennifer Ellison, who is Metro's Board Corporate Secretary. We're also honored by the presence of Montgomery County Council Member Evan Glass. Evan, are you here yet? Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And we're also represented, we also have honored by the presence of Cindy Sung, representing Senator Chris Van Hollen's office. Cindy, are you here? Oh, great to see you as well. So again, welcome to this public hearing on Metro's proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and capital improvement plan. This hearing is convened by the Metro Board of Directors to gather public comments on 2 dockets. Docket B24-01, Metro's proposed fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program and federal fiscal year 2025 grant applications. And docket B24-02, Metro's proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget and associated fare and service proposals. Notice of this hearing was made by publication in the Washington Post, and ads were placed in the El Tiempo Latino, in the Korean Times, in the Washington China News, in the Washington Afro-American, in Atrif, in Denai, through social media in English and Spanish. And signs were placed in all rail stations, on buses, and on Metro Access vehicles, and Metro ambassadors provided information at select high ridership bus stops.
What about Washington here for the blind?
So notice was also made online and sent to all jurisdictions within the Metro Compact area and to area libraries. We're looking forward to hearing from everyone who's joined us this evening to provide testimony. Before we take testimony, we have a few brief presentations, or we have a brief presentation from Ms. Olumide. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Hang on, Lieutenant. Hang on.
There we go. All right. Good evening, Board Member Drummer, members of the public. My name is Yetunde Olumide. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. Happy to do so. Is that any better? Thank you. All right. This evening, I'll present the original FY25 proposed operating budget and 6-year capital improvement program, and our revised proposal released last month that takes into account preliminary financial commitments from Metro's jurisdictional partners. First, I'd like to cover the context of Metro's FY25 budget. Since last summer, we have shared that Metro must confront an unprecedented $750 million budget deficit in the coming fiscal year, beginning in July 2024. Ridership and passenger revenue, while improving, have not fully recovered and are further at risk if severe service cuts are needed to close the deficit. Operating costs are directly related to service levels, and a deficit this large without additional funding requires looking at service cuts and fare increases. On the capital side, the proposed 25 to 36-year CIP planned investment totals $11 billion, and FY25 capital budget investment is about $2.4 billion, with investments focused on reducing the backlog of unmet capital programs and projects. Jose, I might need your help there. Okay, thank you. Metro is confronting an unprecedented $750 million budget deficit in the coming fiscal year beginning in July 2024. We're committed to being open and transparent about the impact on service and the region if we can't close the budget gap. Metro is legally required to present a balanced budget each year, and the fiscal year 2025 budget proposals reflect our current funding situation. Next. The proposed budget estimates the $750 million deficit through drastic service and administrative cuts, fare increases, transferring money from our preventive maintenance program, and cost savings initiatives. We acknowledge the proposed budget would be painful to our customers and employees and would severely limit the services we provide to the community. Just as ridership is accelerating, we would have to reduce rail and bus service below what is needed for the number of people currently riding Metro. Starting from the $750 million gap, Metro's internal efficiencies generate savings of $124 million, and the preventive maintenance transfer increase would further reduce the gap by $193 million. The service cuts and deep administrative reductions result in a $500 million decrease in operating expenses, while the revenue loss from the major service costs, including non-passenger revenue impacts, total $95 million. The fare and parking increase would generate $29 million more in revenue for a net savings of $433 million, and thus closing the FY25 deficit. Without a sustainable funding source, the FY25 proposed budget presents an unrecognizable Metro due to the unprecedented service cuts necessary to close the operating deficit through internal levers. Next. To help close Metro's FY25 operating deficit, the proposed budget would reduce service by roughly a third and increase fares by 20%. Specific changes to Metrobus include eliminate Metrobus service on 67 of 135 lines and reduce service on 41 of 135 lines. On Metro Rail, the system would reduce service on all lines, 10 p.m. system closure, 10 stations closed as well, based on lowest ridership levels, and red line and silver line turnbacks. On Metro Access, the service area would be reduced based on the reduction in fixed route network. Metro would also increase fares and parking rates by 20%. On Thursday, February 8th, 2024, Metro's general manager released a revised budget based on preliminary financial commitments from Metro's jurisdictional partners. The revised 25 proposed budget adopts a regional approach that requires collaboration and assistance from all stakeholders, including Metro, its riders, and Metro's funding jurisdictions. What Metro can control is aggressive expense management and oversight by Metro will keep FY25 gross expenses at FY24 levels, 0% growth. This would be achieved through salary freezes worth $38 million. In FY26, savings from the 25 freezes and adjustment levels in FY26 levels would save approximately $77 million. There would also be $50 million in recurring administrative savings and efficiencies, reducing non-personnel expenditures by about $11 million, and targeted service cuts for about $20 million. These cost reductions result in $119 million and $174 million in savings in FY25. To fully close our FY25 operating deficit, the revised FY25 proposed budget includes $104 million in preventive maintenance transfers. While this lever can provide relief on the operating budget, it decreases capital funding for infrastructure projects and will accelerate Metro's looming capital deficits. It should be noted that while the FY25 PM transfer amount is lower than the proposed budget, the FY26 PM transfer increases. The net effect of the two fiscal years is $27 million more in preventive maintenance being transferred in the 6-year capital program than in the proposed budget. This has led to an overall reduction in the 6-year core non-preventive maintenance transfer for the capital program. As part of its forward-looking plan, Metro will optimize service through targeted rail service cuts and a redesigned bus network focused on delivering the most useful network with available resources. On Metro Bus in FY25, instead of severe cuts on bus, FY24 service levels would be maintained. On Metro Rail, Metro would continue frequent all-day service while more efficiently scheduling peak service periods to align with ridership levels. There would also be more 6-car trains where shorter trains provide sufficient capacity. Reduce service levels on holidays with low ridership as well. On Metro Access, Metro would preserve the current service area. Fares are proposed to increase by 12.5% instead of 20% as originally proposed. As of February 2nd, 2024, Metro's funding jurisdictions have communicated about $480 million in additional funding in FY25 above the 3% cap. Maryland's budget includes $150 million. Budget amendments moving through both houses of the Virginia legislature include $130 million in additional funding, while the District of Columbia leadership sent a letter indicating their commitment to $200 million in additional subsidy. Metro is grateful that the region is working together to address Metro's FY25 deficit and communicated these additional funding amounts. Although Metro's proposed fiscal year 25 capital budget is fully funded, future funding constraints will shrink the capital program, leaving state of good repair and modernization needs unmet, as well as reduced reliability. Generally consistent with what was presented in December, revised amounts reflect updated preventive maintenance transfer assumptions, and Metro's total capital investment in FY25 through 30 would still be the $11 billion, and 10-year plan would be $24 billion. While there's still work to be done, and we look forward to hearing from the public on the budget process, we hope this revised budget proposal is responsive to the feedback and requests of our partners and stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olumide. We really appreciate it. So before we call witnesses, I'd like to explain the testimony process this evening. We'll begin with speakers who have registered in advance. Please come to the podium and microphone when we call on you to speak. If you need a microphone brought to you, please raise your hand and we'll do so. When we call up speakers, I also note that the next two people in the queue should also be prepared. If you haven't yet registered and want to speak, please see the staff outside of the registration table. If you've registered in advance, please make sure that you've checked in at the registration table to let us know you're here. You can watch the hearing live online at www.wamata.com/budget, and the video will be archived on Metro Forward YouTube channel. For the public record, to accurately reflect who's providing testimony,
I'd ask that you please state your name and any organization you represent before beginning your testimony. Since this hearing is being recorded and will be available on YouTube, please do not provide any personal information like addresses, phone numbers, or emails in your testimony. Elected public officials will be allowed 5 minutes, and everyone else will be allowed 3 minutes each. Extra time will be given for translation if needed. We ask that you stay within your time limit because we want to make sure that everyone who wants to speak has a chance to be heard. I also want to note that each speaker is only able to speak once at each hearing. Finally, I want to take a moment to recognize that this is your opportunity to speak, and we are here to listen. This is your opportunity to comment on the proposals, and we are here to listen, I say again. While we will not be able to answer questions during the testimony, Metro staff is available outside to answer questions. Detailed information is also available online at wamata.com/budget. Your comments will become part of the public record that will be reviewed by the Metro Board of Directors. Changes to the options presented here tonight may be proposed in response to testimony and received and complemented by subsequent staff analysis. And now it's time to call the first witness. As a reminder, please tell us your name and any organization you represent before you start speaking.
And our first speaker for the evening is Evan Glass.
Good evening, Commissioner Drummer. Nice to see you. Nice to see our WMATA officials. And most importantly, it's nice to see everybody who's joined us this evening. I'm Evan Glass. I'm a member of the Montgomery County Council, and I chair the Transportation and Environment Committee. And I know how important our metro system is, not only to the residents of Montgomery County, but to the entire DC region. The metro system is one of the world's greatest public transit systems, and that requires investment and care, and we need to continue providing our system with all of the efforts that it needs, not only to get all of us around on a daily basis to work, to school, but also to accommodate all the tourists that we have from around the world. Now, before I continue, I want to say thank you to Governor Wes Moore, who was the first statewide leader in the region to pledge Maryland support for this system, offering $150 million, which has been matched and then some by Mayor Bowser in the district, and I know where all eyes are watching across the Potomac to make sure our friends in the Commonwealth step up as well. But this is a regional system that requires regional action and support. And I am proud to pledge Montgomery County support and the state of Maryland support to do what we have to do to get people moving throughout our region. I want to share some data points with regard to metro system and our sister system here in Montgomery County, our ride-on system, which takes about 58,000 people around our county on the buses, many of which end up on Metro Rail or even on the Metro bus itself. But when we talk about transit, it's not only about getting to work, getting to school, and doing what everyone has to do in their daily lives, but it's also about equity. With regard to the ride-on system here, because those are the statistics I have, here in Montgomery County, the average household income is approximately $110,000. And the people who ride our Metro bus every day have a household income of 1/3 of that, $35,000. So when we talk about public transportation, yes, it is regional connectivity, but it's also about equity, making sure that people who depend on it, who don't have cars, or choose to live a car-free existence, have the opportunity to get where they need to go in a fair way. And the bottom line here is that we need to make sure that our metro system remains safe, remains frequent, and remains affordable. We live in a beautifully diverse community. We have some of the highest car-free rates, not only in the region here in Montgomery County, but across the country as well. And the way that we'll maintain that, the way we'll maintain equitable policies, and the way we will get to our carbon-free goals in the near future and make sure that we have a sustainable environment is to continue to support public transportation. And I will just share with everybody who's here in the audience, it is wonderful to have you all here for this regional conversation. I welcome you to come to Rockville as well, because we will be taking up the county's budget in the coming weeks, and public transportation is an important part of our county budget as well. So I look forward to hearing from you in Rockville. Thank you all for your service, and let's continue making WMATA, Metro Rail, and Metro Bus a world-class public transportation system. We know it is and will remain, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass.
Our next speaker is Michael Goldman.
Thank you, Director Drummer. For the record, my name is Michael Goldman, and I am Chair of the Washington Suburban Transit Commission this year. It's an honor to follow my colleague from Montgomery County, Evan Glass, in testifying before you this evening. As Chair, I am speaking tonight to express our strong interest in the policy issues affecting Marylanders in WMATA's FY25 budget. Thanks to Governor Wes Moore's leadership and the leaders in the district and Virginia, there will be, as pointed out, $450 million in additional subsidy to help solve the fiscal crisis for FY 2025. The General Manager's revised budget proposal for this 25 fiscal year, released in late January, incorporates this additional funding. In our view, the additional subsidy resolves major service reduction risks that were in the original General Manager's budget, including Red Line and Silver Line turnbacks in Maryland, cuts to Metro bus routes in Montgomery and Prince George's County. So I'd like to thank Governor Moore and Secretary Wiedefeld's leading position in this important funding discussion. The additional funding, to be sure, will increase Maryland's FY25 operating subsidy to an astonishing $638 million for the year. But with the $450 million in added funding, WMATA proposes to close the FY25 $750 million budget gap through very modest changes in service, fares, and fiscal policies. As a result, the FY25 budget negotiations, in our opinion, seem close to being resolved. But we know two ongoing areas of concern that need to be resolved. The proposed subsidy levels for each jurisdiction are not consistent with WMATA's current subsidy formula. If the district's $200 million remains the upper limit versus Maryland's $150 million, total subsidies are likely to decrease by $17 million. In addition, WMATA's assumption that all represented employees will see zero raises in FY25 is inconsistent with past negotiating history. The Commission expects that some of the assumed $38 million in labor savings may not be realized. The Commission recommends, therefore, that additional dollars needed for these items for FY25 be offset by additional preventative maintenance transfers instead of further service or fare changes. Also, the WSTC recognizes that many of these fiscal challenges will affect the region again for the FY26 budget cycle as well. Specifically, we continue to oppose Metro Rail turnbacks in Maryland, any station closures, Metro access eligibility changes, bus service reductions, and fare increases for our long-distance commuters. Now, regarding the capital budget, the Commission emphasizes the need for new funding sources starting in FY29, which is when the 2018 dedicated funding bonding capacity will be exhausted. The WMATA capital budget needs to focus, in our opinion, on essential state of good repair projects in light of that fiscal constraint. WMATA should consider delaying new capital projects, including the 8,000 series rail cars and the zero-emission bus conversion in light of that restrictions. There is clearly a need for longer-term solutions to WMATA's operating and capital budget funding needs. The Commission encourages WMATA, the State of Maryland, and our regional partners to identify a solution and implement it in 2025. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Ben Ross.
Good evening. I'm Ben Ross. I'm chair of the Maryland Transit Opportunities Coalition, which is a statewide coalition of transit riders, transit advocates, and transit workers. I'd like to say that Metro is in danger. We have a new budget that puts off the worst, the really deadly cuts that were at first proposed, but it only really provides a little more than half of the money to fill the gap. And the rest of the money is provided by kicking the can down the road and creating a problem that's coming in another year, 2 years, 3 years. And Metro is too important to do that. Metro is the key to the Washington areas, and especially Montgomery counties and Prince George's counties, economic advantage. If you look at where investment is, it's at Metro stations. And we have this great opportunity with the Purple Line coming in Maryland, and very glad that MDOT has made progress on expanding MARC service. So we have the chance to have this tremendous county-wide transit network, but you have to run the service to take advantage of it, and we need to fill the whole gap. This just is not enough, the $450 million. And you up here, this is not your doing. I know that you would love to have more money. It is the doing at this point of the state legislature. So what we at Maryland Transit Opportunities Coalition and our Montgomery County affiliate, Action Committee Transit, are doing is we are urging everyone to write to their state senator and tell them that the $150 million is not enough to get us to where we need to be. We need more money. We don't need to kick the can down the road. This is the key to the livability and the economic success of Montgomery County. So I would urge everyone in the audience here to take this flyer and click on this QR code and send a message to your state senators, who they are the ones that have their fingers on the money, not you three, and tell them to fully fund Metro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Our next speaker is Patrick Sheehan. Just hold, Pat, we're coming for you.
Thank you very much. My name is Pat Sheehan. I am the chair of the Metro's Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I would like to focus on people with disabilities as the constituent group that we serve. We have stated 3 or 4 things that I think are critical. One is, rather than focus on the doomsday budget, which is going to impact so many people, we want to see Metro fully funded. If the doomsday budget or the fiscal cliff comes into effect, 9,000 of the 36,000 people that ride Metro Access will lose service. These people don't have the ability to get on a bike or to get in their car or whatever else. Metro Access is their safety net, and there are no other options for this group. So I am encouraged to hear that the service area for Metro Access under the revised budget will be kept, and I think that's important. These folks need to get to dialysis, they need to get to the doctors, they need to get to grocery stores and entertainment and church, and you can't take that away from them. The service hours also need to be kept so that you don't have holes in the middle of your service. It is a very critical function for this group of people. We have talked with the disability community in DC and in Maryland and in Virginia, and they are coming out and letting folks know that for them, the transportation metro service, particularly Metro Access, is something that we need to keep intact, and we need to run it with the same, in the same service area and at the same schedule as we currently have. We also understand that a multi-year budget is going to be critical, and we are happy to work with members of the board to be able to influence that as best we can. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify, and thank you for working with the disability community to support them and keep that safety net for Metro Access. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan.
Our next speaker will be Joel Ryerson.
Good evening, panel. My name is Joe Ryerson. I've been utilizing the system for 45 years. And that's the lifeline for everybody. Me and my fellow riders. I hope they don't cut the bus service out. He had a proposal on the C8 on the Saturday. They're going to eliminate that. Hope they don't do that. So I have to go to University of Maryland, different meetings, my work. And I don't mind paying more, but don't cut this bus service or the train services. The budget and the capital budget, I'm glad about the governors and the mayor of D.C. Hopefully they help you out, have that budget. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Ryerson.
Our next speaker, David Owens.
Good evening to you all. My name is Dave Owens. I'm a resident in Fort Washington, Maryland. So your budget proposal, which focuses on rate hikes and service reductions and the need for a long-term dedicated revenue source, is predictable. And I say it's predictable because the system currently ignores a large swath of the DMV right now. I'm a Southern Maryland resident, and as a Southern Maryland resident, it is difficult to ask me to advocate for something that, in my opinion, currently is not designed to help me. Now, I understand it's impossible to put Metro rail service everywhere, but according to the U.S. Census, there are close to 500,000 people currently living in Southern Maryland, and yet there is no Metro rail service near us. Instead, each day, more than 100,000 cars, I really should say hundreds and thousands of cars, travel along Maryland 210 and Maryland 5301 every day in gridlock. It results in a lower quality of life. Now, not all of these people would use Metro Rail, but some would, I would, and that new revenue source could help close some of the budget deficit gaps. I quite frankly am tired of hearing about funding shortages, economic development, the love of the environment, green concepts, and we come to these meetings, and we've got a large swath of people in Southern Maryland who we don't even acknowledge, and we don't have a metro there for them. And it's their job to get on buses to get to metro stations. Leaders from multiple states and the district have long believed buses are enough in Southern Maryland. It's not true. I believe WMATA should work with the state of Maryland to build more metro rail in Southern Maryland, along Maryland 210 and Maryland 5301. This would increase ridership, change transportation habits, balance economic equity, and help clean up our environment. We've got enough roads, we don't need more car traffic. Finally, I want to give the current WMATA leadership credit. I really do. You've inherited some difficult challenges, and you haven't run from them. Your CEO is on the news all the time, and I respect him for that. But bold solutions are required here. Please expand Metro Rail into Southern Maryland, despite the current budget deficit. If it takes more taxes, do it. The money we recover in the future will help make up for it. I believe that strategy would transform the system into a valued asset for all DMV residents, and it might motivate more of us to advocate for you for a dedicated revenue plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
Our next speaker, Rob Malone.
Good evening. I'm Rob Malone. I'm the CEO for the ARC Prince George's County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Let me hold it up because I'm probably a little too tall. I heard about the budget proposal last week, and just hearing about it, I'd almost had a heart attack. If not a heart attack, I certainly had heartburn. The ARC Prince George's County supports about 350 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They rely on Metro Access, which also means we rely on Metro Access. They can't get to our services without the support and system of Metro Access. We're also a vendor under the Abilities Ride program, and my understanding is if the initial cuts would have gone through, that we would have not been able to have the resources to provide transportation to assist those people in getting where they need to go in lieu of you using Metro Access, saving you all staff and other resources. I'm thrilled today because I didn't know. I'd heard that there was some money put on the table, but wasn't sure what it was. So I am extremely glad, and I feel better already, that it is not as dire as before. But I got to tell you, just seeing it and just having a gut reaction to just know that our region would even think about kicking people with significant disabilities off of their main mode of transportation was frightening. It really was frightening. I could not believe what I was reading. So I want to ask that you continue to prioritize the intellectual and developmental community, or the disability community at large. I echo and sign on to Mr. Sheehan's comments. I think he was spot on. And thank you for your leadership and support and for allowing us to have a voice this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Our next speaker is Paul Semmelfort. We'll bring in the mic to you.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board. I'm Paul Summerford. I'm a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I'm speaking as an individual. As we have discussed, Pat Sheehan and other colleagues after, we need to fully fund Metro. We really need, with Metro Access, to maintain our service area, maintain the hours of service as we have as is, and maintain a flat fare. For people with disabilities, this is their lifeline in terms of transportation. You want us to be productive citizens of this community in DMV. we don't have the options, like Pat says, to drive or have cars. This is quality of life for us. It's horrifying to even hear the other proposal that we may not be picked up, possibly a quarter of us, about 9,000 in front of our homes to get to where we need to go safely. The possibility we can't get to work or dialysis or be picked up from those sites. To see this proposed service area map really hits a lot of the customers in Prince George's, Montgomery, and Fairfax County in terms of possible thought of customer service. Please don't go there with us. We are, want to be productive citizens. I am a teacher, and I want to be able to go and be a productive human being and teach and inspire children. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmelford.
Our next speaker, Michelle Lindsay. Yes, it's coming back to you. Thank you, Paul.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michelle Lindsay, and I'm here representing the disability community. We didn't ask to be in this position, but we are here, and we are still competent and able to go out there to fend for ourselves, to work, and so forth. We need our transportation to do that. We don't want to be relying on the government to give us any handouts or anything. We are still able to work. We want to go out and work. We want to go to supermarket, church, anywhere we want to go. Metro Access has been a source of comfort for us, taking us to and from, door to door. And we would like you guys, please, to dig deeper in funding this system so that it can stay in place for us to be able to do our daily activities as normal people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay.
Our next speaker, Debbie Brown. We'll hang on, Ms. Brown. We'll come get you. Just hold tight. Thank you.
It's just a few steps to the podium. Okay. The microphone is on your left-hand side.
I'm Debbie Brown, and I live in Rockville, Maryland. And I'm a blind person. I use a white cane. I use Metro Bus and Metro Rail. When I started using the system, there was no Metro Access, so I had to learn how to use it. So, and I am out there when it is 20 degrees and pouring down rain. I got to go to work, and I am out there. And when some of these folks are out in their cars, I'm out there on that bus and on the rail. So, this system, and, I filled out that survey, and it says, and would this change, this or that change your habits? And I said, well, I don't have a choice. It's, unless you cut the service out completely, it's not going to change my habits because I'm going to use it no matter what it costs and whatever, because I have to if I intend to go to work. And the other places I need to go, like shopping and whatever. So, that the cuts that you do, they really can, I have friends who use Metro Access, and they said after July, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go to work. Well, people who don't go to work don't pay taxes. Rather, it is really rather foolish to cut people's livelihood out. So, when you do this, you are affecting people, and people with disabilities, contrary to whether people believe, do work. And so, that you need to be careful about cutting services to people with disabilities. And we really would like to keep the system functioning for the services that are available to people with disabilities, keep those stop enunciators working. And so I would like to thank you all for hearing us tonight, and please consider the people with disabilities in all of the services that you perform.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Our next speaker is Cheryl Court.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Court. I'm the Policy Director for the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We are leading an 18-group nonprofit coalition and teaming with the business community to support Metro funding. We want to thank WMATA for its hard work to identify cost savings and efficiencies to reduce the $750 million operating budget gap. We also thank the jurisdictions for proposing $480 million in additional operating funding for FY25. This includes the $150 million promised by Governor Moore and key state legislators. But we urge our elected leaders to do more to reduce and even close the entire gap. We all know that failure to close the entire gap will mean some service cuts, fare hikes, impact on the workforce, and delays in the capital program. Metro is critical to our region's economy, access to jobs and opportunity, and functioning of our entire transportation system and fighting climate change. Transit should be our region's top transportation funding priority, and more funding should be shifted from highways to transit. The pandemic and growth in telework could undermine our region's longstanding goals for sustainable, equitable, transit-oriented future. So we strongly support the agency's commitment to all-day, frequent, reliable, safe rail and bus service, and simplified fare structure as the best way to restore ridership. Frequent, all-day service for bus and rail is critical for all sectors of our workforce, providing access to jobs and opportunity, saving household transportation costs, attracting the next generation workforce, and enhancing our economic competitiveness. Metro is key to supporting transit-oriented communities and supporting car-free and car-light living, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Without additional revenue beyond the $480 million now proposed, Metro faces hard choices. We believe service cuts and fare hikes should be minimized to the maximum extent possible. This means living with the shift of capital funds to preventive maintenance and delaying some capital projects. But we hope that this shift can be limited to FY25. We are urging our region's officials to come to an agreement by December 2024 on a long-term dedicated funding solution for Metro. We should act while officials are focused on the issue, and CSG would like to be a part of these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Court.
Our next speaker, Rochelle Harrod. Okay, we'll bring the mic to you. Give us 1 moment. John, take Jennifer's mic. Take Jennifer's mic.
Thank you, John. My name is Rochelle Harrod, and normally when I come to events like this, I would normally say that I'm representing Independence Now, where we do peer counseling and support for people with disabilities. But today, I have to honestly say I'm representing myself as an individual also, because these budget cuts will affect me personally. I got a little story for you. So like everyone else, I would love to see Metro fully funded. Why? Because I'm a native Washingtonian. I've been riding Metro as a person with a disability who's a wheelchair user since I was 14. I've been riding Metro Access since its inception almost 32 years ago. Independence means freedom. And so if you cut the services, you will cut our independence. And just to share a little bit of my personal story, I see that some of the bus routes I used from my childhood home, which my brother now lives in, are being cut. The 62, the 63, and the 64 will no longer have weekend service, which means I will no longer have access to visiting my family unless I take off and visit him during the week. And not only that, my parents live at the cutoff point between Southern Maryland and Prince George's County. And that means, since the budget cuts say that grandfathered in service will be eliminated, won't be able to see my parents neither. So I fully support a fully funded Metro the way it was intended to be. And as one of our consumers, Ms. Sarah Lindsay, said, we didn't ask to be this way, and we fight hard and strive hard to be productive, tax-paying citizens. How dare you take that away? And no, we know you are not the ones responsible, but there should be more people with disabilities behind the table making the decisions so that these cuts aren't even put on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrod.
Our next speaker is Ed Gitterman.
Okay, folks, my name is Ed, MTA New York Gitterman. That's right, New York. Currently in Bethesda, and I regret moving down here. First thing I feel right now is this doomsday scenario is just another scare tactic to get the area governments to bail WMATA out of its budget woes right now, and it's like about the equivalent of going to the states and even D.C. crying poverty. And I think what's going to happen is that you're not going to get totally bailed out, and I think you're just going to slap a Band-Aid on for this budget year as well coming up, which is FY25. As far as the area itself, I believe, and I'll try to be as quick as I can, the epicenter for public transit in this area is Washington, D.C. I don't think any of the suburban areas would have transit if it was not for Washington, D.C., no matter who is running the transit system. However, at the same time, I want to be careful to tell you folks that this is not exactly a transit-friendly environment. And when I start hearing about gentrifications in the big cities, including New York and D.C., it worries me because you're just going to be pushing low-income people out into areas that may be hostile to transit. And I think you better be careful what you decide to cut out as far as bus and even rapid transit service in the suburban areas, because I don't see anytime soon you really partnering up with companies like Uber, Lyft, or any taxi cab service, or even changing the rules for Metro access as an alternative. But anyway, that's pretty much all I could say right now since I don't have a written statement. By the way, I got junk called by Metro Access a couple of days ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gitterman.
Our next speaker, Elizabeth Norman. We're bringing the mic to you, Ms. Norman.
Ms. Norman, I'm right here. You just start speaking when you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Norman. I am the president, CEO, and CFO of ME. I am representing those of us who use Metro Access. A couple of months ago, I ran into a gentleman, and he said where he's from, that they're blind people, but they don't have canes, they don't have anybody to take them anywhere. And so I said, well, what happens to them? He said they just crawl up in a corner and die. Metro access is very important to those of us, as has been said, to those of us who have disabilities. It's God who adds years to our life, and He adds life to our years. And I think one of the tools that He is using is Metro Access. Unless you have a disability, you don't know what it's like trying to call somebody, say, hey, can you take me to the doctor? Can you take me to the grocery store? Can you take me here? Can you take me there? You have no idea what it's like. So Metro Access eliminates all of that. And we can go and do things and enjoy in freedom, not having to rely on anyone to take us places. And I appreciate that. I thank God for that. It means so much to us. It's one thing to have to deal with a disability, but then it's another not to be able to function and do those types of things that you need to do to survive. We need to go these different places. So I want to first thank God for the money that came in. That's amazing. That's awesome. I thank God that He touched those who agree to donate the money that has already come in. And so since God has the answer to all of life's problems, I just encourage anybody who's a believer in God to keep praying, like, God, show us where the money's coming from. Show us how to get the rest of the money, and how to teach those who are in charge and those who are making decisions to incorporate statutes that the whole Metro system can run perpetually without any issues whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Our next speaker would be Denise Rush.
I'm coming, Ms. Rush.
Good evening. My name is Denise Rush, and I am the Vice Chair of the AAC Committee, and I'm the Vice Chair for the Metro Access Service. We need dedicated funding, overdue, long overdue. We cannot have the service area for Metro Access change, the hours, everything. We need it to stay the same. We do not have options to get in our cars or get on the bus. We just have Metro Access. That's why we applied for it. We need it. We did not ask to have a disability, but we do. And we go to work, we go to church, we go to the concerts, we go eat, we live just like everybody else. We're already disabled, and now you're trying to disable us. Just cut us off or eliminate service. God is not pleased with that. He will not be pleased if you do that. Please consider keeping Metro Access as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rush.
Our next speaker, Ethan Abelman.
Hello, this is Ethan Abelman, and I'd like to comment on the proposed fare hikes. First, if there is a choice between cutting service and raising fares, I strongly support raising fares by a reasonable amount, which is why I generally support the proposal of 12.5% in the revised budget. But this does not change the fact that any fare increase will hurt and the pain will not be felt equally. If you're like me, don't own a car, and rely on bus and rail to get around, a flat 12.5% increase may as well be a 12.5% increase to your transportation budget. And as you know, people without cars are more likely to be low income and have a larger portion of their budget affected. So while I support the fare increase, I would encourage WMATA to do all it can to divert the pain from transit-dependent riders. I'll offer one small proposal which has been implemented in numerous other transit agencies, which is fare capping. In a system with fare capping, if you spend a certain amount in a given day, week, and/or month, future trips are free. You can think of it as a replacement for the unlimited passes WMATA currently offers. If an unlimited pass would have made sense, you automatically get it. This would especially help folks who aren't able to pay for a pass up front. And a recent study even suggested that a monthly fare cap led to increased ridership in 2 U.S. cities. I'm sure there are other fare policies you could consider to lessen the burden on WMATA's most vulnerable users, including the transit-dependent, low-income, and people with disabilities. I simply want to suggest that WMATA staff try to think creatively beyond a simple flat percentage increase when considering how to raise fares equitably. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Aberman.
Our next speaker, Sarah Harper.
Good evening, board and everyone's that has been able to be here. I think that I've been to these hearings for 30 or 40 years now, and Metro doesn't really listen to any of us, and they still do their cuts. But it's still important for us to be here. And what I think that's very important is that public transportation should be subsidized. It should not be set up as a profit and loss business. We need public transportation, not all of just everyone that's here, but all of the ones that have not been able to get here that need the public transportation. I think that there is a different way to get more money, and Metro has not chose to do that. And that is to tax the developers on their properties. Metro gets a lot of development around the Metro stations because then it attracts customers and it attracts businesses. But Metro will not do that, and that is a source of income that is left on the table. Cutting bus and rail will impact thousands of riders, and this will create problems for them to get to work. It'll mean a drop-off of customers to the businesses that have grown up near the rail stations. And I have a sign, and I'm going to show it to you guys, and then I'm going to turn it around so everyone sees it. Metro, tax developers, no layoffs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Ansel Torres. We'll come in for you, Ansel.
Do you want to go to the podium, or do you want to speak here? Okay, all right. Okay. We're going to go around the podium, so you just passed it. You're going to make a right, and then another right. The mic stand is low.
All right, I'll need to hold the microphone.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. There you go. Hello. Good evening. Welcome to downtown Silver Spring, essentially my backyard. I am a blind Metro Access rider. I've been using the system now for about 20 years. And prior to going to Metro Access meetings, I was always, puzzled about why was the system so messed up. It has gotten better. Amen for that. Thanks for the work that Metro Access staff have done. I appreciate it very much. You're probably surprised hearing this from me, but that is, my life has improved because of what Metro Access is doing. However, my big concern is honesty in Metro budgeting. When it comes to Metro Access priorities and Metro Rail and Metro Bus priorities. The reason why I say this is because WMATA asked all the stakeholders to contribute large sums of money for Metro Access, over $200 million. However, about 40% of that is never spent. We, in the disabled community who depend on Metro Access, are underfunded in Metro Access. So therefore, we receive lower quality vehicles, lower quality in all kinds of things that they try to do for us. And that is unacceptable. Because when the money is not used at Metro Access, it is, where does it go? It goes back to Metro WMATA, and that money is spent on bus rail. I don't have a problem with money being spent on bus rail. My issue is that why are we being sacrificed? We are being advertised to the stakeholders, give us more money because we have to help out the disabled people. You threaten the disabled people here, you threaten them that their services are going to be diminished and fares are going to be increased. Well, don't get me started on fares. Their fares are going to be increased so that we come crying here, oh, don't cut the disabled because all of this is going to happen. Well, the truth is, and I want my blind friends on the AAC to look into this, I want Washington Post to look into this, and I would like the Government Accountability Office to look into this. There is no truth in WMATA budgeting, and the disabled are being pimped to raise money for Metro, and then when we get the money, what is going on with the money? It's being funneled over to bus and rail. That is not fair. It is not right, and it must be fixed. From WMATA at Metro Access. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Torres.
Our next speaker, Louis Stavies. And we're bringing the mic over.
You can stay seated if you want, Mr.
Good evening. My name is Lois Staves. I'm a board member of I3S Foundation, which is a 501c3 in the state of Maryland. We are a support group for blind and low visual persons. We usually have about 35 persons on our calls every Tuesday and Thursday. Most of the people are retired, older residents of PG County. I myself live in Fort Washington, have been a homeowner for 43 years. Life didn't start this way for most of us, you know, glaucoma, different diseases that have taken over our lives as we've aged. We're asked to age in place, you know. I love my home. I want to stay in my home. I've raised my children, my grandchildren, now I'm working on great-grandchildren. But if Metro Access is cut, it will make it virtually impossible for me to be there. I want to be a viable part of my community. I go out to training centers. I go out to health clubs. I live life, you know. I don't want to give up life. That's very important to me. I think that keeps us alive, living life. So I ask for all consideration for Metro Access. We don't have the opportunity to opt for a vehicle in the driveway or in the parking lot. That's not an option for us. We depend on public transportation. We depend on bus rail. We depend on Metro Access. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taves.
Our next speaker, Alice Lanier.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. All right, I'm coming. There you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alice Lanier. I'm here as a resident. I live in Bowie, Maryland. I'm listening to everyone speak today, and I don't know if what I have to say is appropriate for this venue, but I'm going to say it anyway. I joined a telephone conversation on Monday. It was a teleconference call for WMATA. Excuse me, sometimes I stumble when I speak, but anyway. And they were encouraging everyone to come to this meeting. It was encouraged to come here to voice our opinions and to pose our questions and have our comments. Now, the thing that I noticed, they gave a number out, the toll-free, not the toll-free, the 301-352 number that we're all familiar with from Metro Access. and you were to press number 7 and the 5 and get a summary of where the hearings are to be held and the dates. But that's all you got. You got no information about timeframes, which is important, critical. You know why? Because I had to make transportation arrangements to get here, something that was encouraged to do on that phone call. And here I am, and my bus will be here at 7:30. I made a 7:30 appointment or pickup time because the telephone information that you all provided did not give that information. So I'm bringing this up to say this. You know, the efficiencies like this, gaps in information, because I can only make decisions for my life armed with all the information provided. And if you exclude information, then my options become limited. So if you end tonight at 10 o'clock, guess what? Alice O'Neill left at 7:30 because that's when her bus came and picked her up. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, when you're giving these meetings over the phone, it's very important. Now, I didn't get there on time, and I'm sure there are a lot of us that don't get where we're supposed to be on time, okay, for transportation reasons or whatever. It would be really nice for the people who are moderating these meetings, facilitating these meetings, to give housekeeping rules throughout the process. In other words, I came in at 4:15. No one told us how to raise our hand if you were on the call and you were blind, because no one said it. So it would be nice periodically throughout presentations if the moderator or facilitator, whoever's in charge, periodically tells us how we are to participate through the process. And, you know, I say it a lot, and I have more to say, but I'll come to another meeting to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lanier.
Thank you, Ms. Lanier.
Our next speaker, Amber Woods. We're coming to you.
I see you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who attended this very important meeting. I think all need to be informed, and transparency is definitely well-deserved. I have been a Prince George's County resident, DMV area, for about all my life, 40 years of it. I became disabled in 2015, so officially, this has been my battle personally. I am a member on the Commission for Individuals with Disabilities in Prince George's County. As well, I am the president of the National Harbor Chapter, National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. I live in Prince George's County, and I see a lot of places that are rural, and a lot of people who also mentioned the grandfathering out alarms me. A lot of our buses in our rural areas are being cut all the time and threatened to be non-existent. Therefore, a lot of us who are in the disabilities community will no longer have access. Another issue I have noticed is that was mentioned and reflected by members earlier who had mentioned about serving in their churches, serving in their communities. I know a lot of them. A lot of them were seniors who actually put in their dues, as they say, and I think now they should definitely live their best lives, as well as persons with disabilities. We still, even though we have not reached that golden age of seniorhood, if you will, a lot of us have a lot to contribute. As what you have mentioned, I do serve in my community so well, and I would love to continue to do so. So please, let us work together, the DMV. Also, I'm asking out for a legislative, and I'm also looking for more creative ways, maybe even grants, federal grants, that can help in rural areas to get bus services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Woods.
Our next speaker, Derek Neighbors.
Thank you for this. Good evening, everyone. My name's Derek Neighbors. I'm a political organizer for ATU Local 689. Local 689 represents, I'm sorry, should I start from the beginning or? Okay. Good evening, all. My name is Derek Neighbors. I'm a political organizer for ATU Local 689. Local 689 represents over 15,000 transit workers and retirees across the DC metropolitan area, including many dedicated, hardworking WMATA employees. I am one. And as we all know, our members in our region face unprecedented challenges over the last few years. Nonetheless, transit workers have faithfully stayed on the job and kept our region afloat, even through the worst pandemic in over a century. Since then, we have seen reduced ridership, record inflation, increases in violence, and a system pushed to the physical brink. With a stated deficit, hundreds of millions of dollars deep. Let me be clear, finding the solution to Metro's long-standing systemic funding problem is essential. However, the solution must not fall on the backs of working class people. It cannot fall on our members who were deemed frontline heroes. Additionally, it cannot fall on the working Washingtonians who need reliable service to pick up their kids, to get to work, and to navigate this great city. Indefinitely freezing wages for transit workers is a short-sighted proposal in this budget. Telling your workers their pay is frozen until further notice in the midst of national CDL shortage and an upsurge in violence towards transit workers is a recipe for disaster. Newer workers will go elsewhere to find jobs and guaranteed pay raises and work more safely. Older workers will retire. We will undoubtedly be facing a shortage of operators, mechanics, which I am one, and station managers that will translate into service cuts for the public. On a similar note, another proposal on the table is taking $165 million in preventive maintenance funds to cover holes in operations. This practice is dangerous and risks lives and the security of riders, workers, and the system alike. I also like to say that large fare increases will also hit working and middle-class people the hardest. We need for Metro to push as hard as it can to make sure every legislator here in Maryland knows how vital it is to fund Metro without these measures. Local 689 runs a world-class and vital public service. Let's fund it accordingly. I have given 264 months of my life to Metro. I've ridden the system since DC Transit as a token there. And, you know, I can't say how important it is. With the upcoming tourist season, you got cherry blossoms, you've got the Easter season, July 4th, the Nats games, the Caps, and a Formula One race coming up this summer. So, notwithstanding the fact we have summer concerts series, which they normally keep Metro open later.
Our next speaker, Eli Chadwick.
Hello, my name is Eli Chadwick, pronouns he or they. I'd like to thank my comrades in the disability community and with Amalgamated Transit Union. I'm here today only representing myself, but I am both a person with disabilities who is not allowed to drive and a union member. I'm in SEIU Local 722. We are out of Washington Hospital Center and Children's National. I'm also a student at Montgomery College. As a member of all those groups, we need transit. We need transit that can get us places such as to school, to work, to the grocery store, and we need a transit system that does not forget people with disabilities or forget its union workers and the raises they deserve. For example, oftentimes I'm working on the weekends from 7 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., and I cannot get to work. I cannot get to work because the train does not open until 7 in the morning. A transit system designed to help workers, especially essential workers who cannot work from home, get to work should allow them to get to work when they need to, including 6 a.m. shifts for our environmental service comrades, 7 a.m. for me. And even, for example, a transit turnaround on the red line would prevent my classmates from getting from their homes in the district in Montgomery County and Prince George's County to Rockville by Metro. And they would not be able to continue their education. They may have to drop out and continue the cycle of poverty. So there are these, you can say, oh, to have this service for my Metro access, my Metro transit, typical transit such as bus or rail, and to permit me to get to work, permit me to get to school, it is worth it to take funds from wherever it needs to go and put them into offering these services for people who live and work in Washington. But we cannot forget the workers. I had the experience of being a patient at my own hospital. Our comrades in ATU are also riding their own system. They need to be able to afford to do that, afford to feed themselves in order to maintain the system, the great system that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Chris Vroom.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Vroom. For the past 7 years, I've been a resident of Montgomery County, and for most of that time, I've been a nurse working in this region's emergency departments. For the record, I'd like to remind everyone that Maryland currently endures some of the longest ER wait times in the nation. Many other speakers at this event have spoken of the effects that these cuts would have on the disadvantaged communities, but I want to speak more broadly into what these cuts could have to our healthcare services in general. Many of our most vulnerable patients rely on the Metro access and Metro services in order to even get to the doctor. Many patients use the Metro service in general to get to the emergency room or the hospital for less than emergent care. If without access to these services, these patients would probably have to further strain our already strained EMS services. Hospitals employ thousands of workers, and while it's easy to focus on the doctors and nurses, they generally earn wages that are adequate for cars, so most of them drive. I'm talking about thousands of environmental service technicians, surgical technicians, sterile technicians, janitors. These people are necessary for the hospitals to function at all, and they often work odd hours and they work 24-hour shifts. Well, they work shorter shifts that revolve around the entire clock. Even if these people cannot get to work, the hospitals cannot function. Even if you are wealthy, even if you are affluential, losing the ability of many of these workers to get to these hospitals could lead to loss of services later in the night or even on the weekends. No, these Metro cuts affect everyone, no matter where you stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Virgilia Collins. Do you need a microphone to come to you? We'll bring it. Can you just raise your hand? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Virgilia Collins, and the reason why I want to keep the Metro bus and Metro rail and Metro access is because I live in Temple Hills, Maryland, which is along Branch Avenue, and it's in between 3 Metro subway stations, and I live on 5 different bus lines. 4 of them are Metro buses. And before they brought the Green Line Metro where I live, I used to work at nighttime. And me and a group of people, we had to walk from D.C. into Maryland. And these were people I didn't even know, and everybody just walking because there was no subway, there was no bus to even go into D.C. at that time of night. So that's one reason. So, if you cut the Metro bus and Metro rail, then I'll have to revert back to walking. I walk anyway, because I don't like waiting for the bus. But I have my bad back, as you saw, it was hard for me to stand up. So sometimes it's hard for me to stand up and walk. So I can't be walking everywhere like I used to when I was younger and in good health, better health. So, and it's not just the distance, it's also the time of day. There are times where I had to I caught a Metro Access one time as late or as early as 1:30 in the morning because I went to an event. So that's right, and I'm just not speaking for myself, but there are other people like my sister who's disabled. She lives in Hinesville, Maryland, and works all the way in Langley Park, McLean, Virginia. She catches Metro Access, and I heard them talk about maybe not starting Metro, I don't know if it's Metro Access or the buses, until 8 o'clock in the morning, and she has to be there at 6, so that means she'll be late for work. So I would prefer if you maybe not cut out the buses, but maybe cut back on the time, how long you have to wait, cut back on some of the time. Like instead of, 20 minutes, maybe cut it back to 30 minutes. I'd rather for you to do that than to cut it out completely. Because some buses, they go, I had to catch, if I had to catch a bus, if I didn't catch Metro, I would have to catch, one bus and 2 buses and 2 Metro trains just to get here. That's a lot of transportation. That's a lot of, having to transfer. So, that's the reason. I can't remember everything I want to say since I didn't write it down, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to keep Metro, all 3 of them. And one reason why you might be losing money is because people jump in the gates at the Metro stations, so we have to make up for that. So and we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to pay for what someone else is doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final speaker that signed up is Ms. Joyce Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come to this event, but I want to say that I appreciate Metro Access. I've been on many paratransits in different states, and I have to applaud you. Everything you have in life is not perfect, but I'm going to tell a little story about myself. I had the privilege of working in the federal government for 42 years. I started losing my sight, and if it wasn't for Metro Access, I wouldn't be able to complete my tour of having 42 years. So I really appreciate that. As a parent, I have a son with special needs. He uses Metro Access, and that helps him with his independence. Myself personally, I am part of a support group with Lois Staves, Inspirational 3 support group. We have had that group. Next month will be 10 years. Our people, our blind community, depend on Metro Access. We do not need any cuts, any shortage of buses. I am one of the ones that have been privy to being grandfathered in, and I love it. And then don't mess with that. And also, I would like to say, do not strip us of our independence. Do not take away our hope. If you strip us of our independence, what do we have left? Like everyone has said here, we enjoy going to plays, we enjoy going out. We didn't ask for this. Please, I'm begging you, do not strip us of our independence. Do not do that. Thank you.
Ms. Brooks. Is there anyone else present that wants to speak or hasn't already done so? If so, please identify yourself. Okay, this appears that this is our last speaker. You're welcome. The hearing is now concluded, and I just want to share with you that you're welcome to submit additional written testimony. It must be received by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, March the 5th. Testimony can be submitted online at wamata.com/budget. And you have the option to complete a survey once you go online and write free-form comments and upload a letter, a petition, or other documents. You can also submit testimony to the Office of the Secretary, WMATA, SECT 2E, P.O. Box 44390, Washington, D.C. 20026. Again, all testimony must be received by 5 p.m. on March the 5th. We also encourage everyone to submit comments online if possible. You also have the option to speak at other hearings we're holding on the budget this week. Tomorrow evening at Metro headquarters at 300 7th Street Southwest, Washington, D.C., which is across from LaFont Plaza Metro Station. We also have one on Wednesday, February 28th at Arlington County Government Center, 2100 Clarendon Boulevard, Suite 307. This location is above the courthouse Metro Station served by the orange and silver lines. And finally, we have a virtual hearing that we're holding on Thursday, February 29th at noon. Thursday's hearing will only accept comments via phone or video. Information on how to register for the remaining hearings can be found at www.wamata.com/budget. Thank you again for joining us, for taking time